My name is Brett Fish, and one of the questions that I get asked a lot is when can we stop saying sorry for apartheid, or when can we move on? When have we done enough?
It's been 23 years already. Can't we just watch sporting events together and be friends and maybe have a braai or something like that?
But I guess it is a bit of a valid question. When have we done enough? So I was at the Justice Conference that took place in Cape Town recently, and I was sitting in on a panel that was about identity. And one of the things that one of the ladies said that really struck me in terms of answering this question and made things really clear in terms of processing it was this imagined conversation between a white person and a black person. And the white person says, "When can I stop paying for the sins of my grandparents?" And the black person responds, "When I can stop paying for the sins of your grandparents." And so that is the crux of the matter right there. There's a lot of people today who are, I was born after apartheid, I didn't even have anything to do with it, or my parents didn't even have anything to do with it. When can we just move on? But if there are people whose lives are still being negatively affected, even though it's 23 years later, by the consequences of apartheid, then there's still work to be done. And my friend Craig Stewart explains it quite well. He says that in 1994, it's as if the law of apartheid was ended. And my wife Val and I discovered in Durban recently that that's not even completely true. There's still some horrific laws in place that need to be taken out. But for the most part, the law of apartheid was ended. But the spirit of apartheid lived on. And so there's the understanding that if you were completely racist and the law gets changed, you don't wake up the next morning and suddenly you're not racist. If you're working at it, then there's things to be unlearned and relearned and new ways of processing things, new ways of doing things. And if there were structures and systems put in place to support and celebrate and make sure that apartheid happened, then those things need to be brought down. New things need to be created. Some things need to be dismantled so that new things can be created. And so that's where we're living. And 23 years later, a lot of people would say that not enough stuff has been done in terms of that kind of work. I think the question itself is rather sad, is rather the wrong question to be asking, because it has kind of a scarcity mindset. When can I have done enough? Like when can I have ticked off enough boxes so that I can get on with living my own life, so that it can be all about me and my comfort and stuff again? Like when can I have reached the minimum requirement so that I can move on? And that's such a negative question, when we should be looking around at South Africa and seeing that a lot of people are living in less than suitable conditions. There's still some mindsets that exist all over the place, especially maybe in WhatsApp neighborhood groups. But in restaurants, in places of business, in house renting places where there is still a lot of tearing down and a lot of rebuilding that needs to be done. There are many people still suffering for the sins of my grandparents. And if it wasn't my grandparents directly, then the grandparents of white people, and I'm representative of them. And so when I look around and I see a mess that was created by people that went before me, I see that there's a sense of responsibility that I have to be part of fixing that mess and part of doing it together with other people, looking at what needs to be done. And there's a lot of work to be done. But the idea that some people are still living with the consequences of apartheid means that my job is not done. And maybe it's not going to be done in my lifetime. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in almost every sphere of society. There's a lot of unlearning. There's a lot of tearing down. And there's a lot of rebuilding. And so maybe it's a lifelong journey. And it needs to come from the place of how can we make South Africa better for the majority of people to live in and to celebrate their lives in? How can we do this together? And so hopefully that little mindset flip or twist or exchange will get us moving along this journey, because that's something that I think is holding a lot of people back. Haven't we done the work? Aren't we? Can't we just be friends? Can't we just move on? No, we can't, because people are still living with the pain caused by things that were put in place by your and my grandparents and by those that went before us. And so there is still a lot of work to be done, but let's do it together.